Hey y'all, I'm Will, and welcome back to the Pixelists. Today we're talking about the Legend of Vox Machina, episode 5. Gonna be walking you through all the details and little Easter eggs you missed. Quick spoiler warning, I've seen all the campaigns, so pointing out Easter eggs can be spoilery. I will try to err on not spoiling things, but you know how it goes. So, wanted to hit that. Trying to be quicker this time. I'm sure some people are getting tired of these intros, but thinking about doing Twitch watch party for the next drops of episodes. So episode 7, 8, 9, and then eventually 10, 11, 12. If you use Twitch, you know about the watch party thing. Let me know in the comments if that'd be something you're interested in. I'll do a pinned comment saying where you can find me on Twitch, and it would be fun to watch with you guys. So let me know. Other than that, Pixelists, that's us. We do a podcast, baby. Check it out. We talk about these episodes and other stuff. So if you're interested, you can find that on the channel. Other than that, pause for dramatic effect. That's all I got, actually. Let's go. All right, to kick things off here, we have the symbol of the clasp painted on the wall behind Vax there. And to put it simply, the clasp is essentially like a thieves guild, if you will, in Amon. And actually there are sects all over Exandria. But, you know, that's where you'll go for black market dealings and, you know, assassinations and, you know, just all kind of shady things. And, fun fact, Vax was actually a member of the clasp at one point, so it's kind of fun that he's the one on screen when this is shown. So next we have these three triggering a trap in Gilmore's Glorious Goods and getting caught in this, you know, void prism, which coincidentally looks like a D8. But I think this is a representation of Glyph of Warding. If you're unfamiliar with Glyph of Warding in D&D is essentially like a trap you can place. And it has a lot of different uses, but one of the things you can do is like contain a spell of your choosing within the glyph of warding. So Gilmore could place this glyph and it's invisible and it's hard to detect. And then he sets like triggering parameters for it. And so whenever that happens, the glyph triggers and the stored spell is then cast. So, you know, he could have had it so like, you know, if this drawer is open or if this thing is touched, then boom, the spell activates. And in this case, you know, it's some sort of trapping spell. So just thought this was cool. Okay, so we're back in Gilmore's Glorious Goods, and just like last time, there's a bunch of stuff in the background here. I'm going to start from the right and make my way left. So if you look at the top right, we've got this piece of amber, what looks like fossilized amber, and I feel like this is definitely a shout out to Campaign 2. Caleb would use the spell Vault of Amber all of the time. Now, if we're moving left to the, like far to the left, you'll see this onion or some sort of root vegetable in a jar. This is driving me crazy. If anyone has any ideas what this is, please let me know in the comments. I've looked up like magical food and stuff, and I have not been able to find anything. But the fact that it's in Gilmore's and it's in like a glass protective case, I feel like it's gotta be something. I even tweeted at Matt, but he did not respond. So I have not had any luck trying to figure out what this is. But next to that, it looks like we've got another D8 contained in a nice case there. And below that, we have what looks to be like a fancy lamp. So maybe this is like a magical lantern or even a genie's lamp or something. But yeah, there's probably like 18 other things in this background that are significant, but those are the ones that jumped out to me, especially that stupid root vegetable. I need to know your secrets. All right, next up we have something that was actually in the shop the first time they came to Gilmore's. I just missed it, so shout out to you guys in the comments that pointed this one out to me. But we have a little Sam's Flask Easter egg. So Sam had this enormous flask that he would drink out of during Campaign 2, and Gilmore's got it there on his shelf. So the parties come to stock up, and one of the first things Vex goes for are these magical arrows, and we obviously find out exactly what these do later in the episode, but if you'll notice on the sign next to them, you can kind of get a hint of perhaps what they are capable of. And here we get another iconic
dagger, dagger, dagger
from Liam, and also these daggers in this case could be subtle nods to daggers Vax will wield at some point or has already wielded at some point in the campaign. That being said, I do not think these daggers are literally those daggers, but possibly references. And the one on the left, the green one, could be the dagger of venom. The one that he's pointing at could just be like his keen dagger. And then the one on the right that's basically out of frame could be the dagger of life stealing. So maybe a reach, but who knows? All right, next up we have Rodrigo, and I've only known Rodrigo for about a day and a half, but if anything were to happen to him, I would kill everyone in this room and then myself. I love this guy. I don't know why. He just brings me immense happiness, and he is a representation of the spell Unseen Servant, which Gilmore, as a powerful sorcerer, would obviously have access to. And I just love this little flavor moment, and obviously, we can see him. He looks like a blue ghost, but I think that's just so that we have an idea of what's going on. Vax is staring straight at the muffin, so I think the implication is here that for everyone else in this room, they only see the floating tray and, excuse me, I think I said muffin. It's a glass of tea. But we stand Rodrigo in this house, and he better have more scenes, is all I have to say. So after this, we got another cute Vax Keyleth moment with him helping her get out of that finger trap. But if you'll notice on the left here, what I wanted to point out was the immovable rod. It's an iconic D&D item. Vox Machina actually had a few immovable rods throughout campaign 1. So it's cool to see it here, and possibly a little bit more on this later, although it might be episode 6. And of course, it wouldn't be a shopping episode without some Vex bartering. I kind of mentioned this, I think, in episode 2 when, Vex and a few of the others freaked out about the treasure hoard in Krieg's lair. That Vex just loves money, and this is another facet of that. Every time that at least she is present for that anyone goes shopping, especially Grog, who, with his low intelligence does not know how to get a good deal. She obsesses over it, always wants to, give her patented hair flipper or eye wink to try to get that lowest deal. So I love getting the reference to it here and trying to weasel Gilmore for the friends and family discount. All right, so now with the party fully stocked up, they hit the road and they begin their journey to Whitestone. And this isn't really like a hidden detail or anything, but this is just iconic D&D. If you've ever played, and especially if you've ever DM'd, you will know that traveling is like a big part of planning sessions. And I can obviously only speak for myself, but at least when I've DM'd, I always worry about planning the traveling sections. Now, clearly, some people just say, snap of the fingers and you are at your destination. Took you 3 weeks, but hey, you made it. But I'm of the camp to try to make travel interesting and not make it feel like, you're just teleporting across the world in terms of world building. You want it to feel alive and realistic. Like, no, you can't just teleport to the city, until you have a spellcaster capable of literally teleporting. And before I ramble on too long here, I just wanted to say I love seeing this because to me, like I said, it's an iconic part of D&D. And we're going to get an encounter on the road a little bit later in the episode, and I'll talk about it some more there. But, it's just you try to think of fun ways to spice up the traveling sections. And I just appreciate seeing this in the show. So as they're traveling, Scanlan is spending more and more time trying to decipher this book. And, the thing he comes up with is ziggurat. He keeps seeing that word over and over. And if you've seen campaign 1, kind of what the ziggurat is pointing to and what this may mean. And at some point during these breakdowns, maybe toward the finale, I kind of want to do a deeper dive on kind of what's happening here and the lore around this, but I think it's too early spoiler wise to jump into it here. But I just love kind of the progression of Scanlan figuring out more and more the longer he spends with it. And then also we get this shot of him looking at these 2 pages, and we have seen both of these pages before, but not really with enough detail to know that they were next to each other. When Vax first finds the book, he sees the whispered one page. And then last episode, when Scanlan's looking at it, we see a full shot of that symbol page on the other side. Now, I think I was talking about last episode trying to decipher what this symbol may be referred to. And I still don't really have that figured out. A couple people pointed out some interesting things in the comments that, may allude to the vibe of kind of what we're seeing. But it is interesting to me, at least, that these 2 pages are next to each other because to me, knowing about the whispered one and kind of what that means, having seen campaign 1, and then seeing this big symbol on the other page, I think that this is probably like the ritualistic symbol describing like how to perform something, if that makes sense. And so I mean, not that this is like a huge oh my god reveal or anything, but it gives some more context to that big spell symbol that I was curious about. All right, also in this travel sequence, we get this great moment with Vax and Grog. You know, Grog is really upset that Pike's gone, and he's trying to communicate with her like she told him that he could, and he's been unsuccessful. Yeah, I think this is just a great moment showing, you know, Grog's soft side again, but it also, I think, is a reference to something that happens much later in the campaign where characters may try to communicate with someone who's not there. And I don't want to say more than that as to spoil it, but hopefully you campaign one people out there know what I'm. And here, this is just a cool, like, atmospheric moment as they're traveling. You have the fly land on this exotic-looking fly trap, kind of just giving a hint to, like, the vegetation in Exandria. But, and, you know, forgive me for the reach here, but I like to think that this is maybe a nod to the fact that perhaps there is a giant fly trap nearby, which giant fly traps are a monster in D&D that are basically, you know, exactly what it's called, an enormous one that eats, like, people and horses and large creatures like that. So I don't know, just thought it was fun. All right, next up we get introduced to these demon hounds. I don't know what these are. I'm pretty sure they're not supposed to be anything one-to-one from D&D. Even in the campaign, Matt often created his own monsters, or, you know, completely like switched up the stats and, you know, combined monsters, yada yada yada. So I think that's more than likely what's happening here. This encounter in the campaign, did not happen this way. If you watched my last episode, you know I spoke about how in the campaign they didn't even have the book that these dogs are after. So things didn't really play out this way, and instead, on the way to Whitestone, they were just attacked by a creature known as a Behir, which had no relation to the Briarwoods whatsoever, because again, they didn't have this book, so the Briarwoods weren't sending things after them at this point. But anyway, I think, you know, these dog creatures look to be some sort of amalgamation between like displacer beasts from D&D, maybe Sashuva, or, you know, Demigorgon dogs from Stranger Things. So, you know, take your pick. But like I mentioned earlier, with the traveling in D&D, this is just a classic travel encounter. You know, like I said, you try to think of fun things to spice up those journeys, and, you know, a lot of D&D manuals will have you like roll tables where you can roll a dice, and, you know, depending on what it lands on, it tells you what monster attacks the party. And I don't want to wax too poetic on this since I already had a little spiel, but again, just love that we're seeing, you know, this travel representation in the show. So next we have this, which is a nod to so the horses unfortunately careen off the cliff, and this is sad, but unfortunately it is classic Vox Machina. It's actually classic just Critical Role over both campaigns. The death count or abandonment count of mounts, horses, and other type creatures is just staggeringly high. So to me, this is definitely a nod to that, and just those poor horses. At least it was quick. Here we get my favorite Easter egg reference of the whole episode. You know, Scanlan says he wants to go out being strangled, and Vax tells him, so be careful what you wish for. And I'll just leave it at that. All right, in this next scene, we have a few things happening. First and foremost, we get mention of Whitestone and Residuum. So obviously, this whole kingdom is called Whitestone, but the reason for that is because of the literal white stone that is quarried here. And what makes it so important is that it can be refined into residuum. And residuum is basically this very valuable, powerful spell component. Functionally, it can basically replace any spell component that you need, and it can take the place of that. So it enhances magical properties. It's just a very powerful reagent. And so clearly, you know, that's probably one of the reasons the Briarwoods came to Whitestone and took it over, was for the access to this resource. And, you know, Delilah is questioning how much longer is it ready. So clearly they need a lot of this residuum for something. And also, I'm just going to take the time here that it's it's a shame that it's taken me 5 episodes to give Grey Delisle, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, her flowers, but she is the voice actress for Delilah, and she has been absolutely killing it. Clearly, even if you haven't seen Campaign 1, you know how important of a character this is, and she's just knocked it out of the park. But also, we have Professor Anders here, and he is voiced by, oh no, what's his name? Stephen Root. Stephen Root. I should edit this out, but I'm keeping it. Stephen Root. Well, if you're not familiar, he was in Office Space, the red stapler guy, but I, don't want to distill him down to that role because he has been in many, many things, and he absolutely is perfect for this role as well. And actually, the Hound plays the other guy. God, what's me not remembering names right now? But the guy with the big metal plates on his arms. The Hound from Game of Thrones. So also an amazing casting, even though he doesn't have any lines in this scene. And then finally, we have Stonefell, who is voiced by Darren DePaul. Now, I already gave a shout out to Darren DePaul when he showed up a few episodes back, voicing a small NPC, the announcer from the banquet. So I won't give that whole spiel again, but, just great to see him pop up here as well. All right, here we go. But real quick, we know who these people are given the end of the episode. So a little perhaps Easter egg is this man that is supposed to be the stand-in for Grog has a beard. And if you saw Campaign 1, at times Grog has a beard. And we haven't seen that yet, but I'm hoping since this stand-in has one, that maybe it's a clue that we might get to see bearded Grog at some point this season. Okay, it's the part you've all been waiting for, or perhaps dreading. I am going to talk about the Campaign 1 to Campaign 3 connection, tie, potential reference, Easter eggs. So, that being said, spoilers for Campaign 3. I don't really know how to qualify this, so I'm just going to give a generic spoilers for Campaign 3. If you don't want to know anything about Campaign 3, back out. If you're currently caught up on Campaign 3, then obviously this isn't a spoiler, but it is a theory. So, if I'm right, it could be a spoiler, but that's just the risk you take with theories, right? Anyway, moving on. So for anyone that didn't see my past videos, what I'm referring to is in Delilah's chest, there was a raven skull. And I pointed out that this could be an Easter egg referring to Pate de Rollo, who is Laudna from Campaign 3's pet dead rat. It has a raven skull for a head instead of a rat head. A lot of people have pointed out, and again, completely justifiably, that this is a stretch because Campaign 3 is happening right now, and this show was in production years ago. That being said, I thought that, maybe the fact that Marisha was working on this show got inspired to make Laudna because of things in the show, and therefore it is possible that either A, she had the foresight to place the skull as a reference to Pate, or B, the skull was just there and she decided to use it, after the fact. Okay, so here's what we know. Laudna is from Whitestone. Delilah Briarwood is her warlock patron. So that's another direct connection that could perhaps, be a clue for the Raven Skull. But where I'm going off the deep end here, and I'm not going to take credit for coming up with this theory completely on my own, because I did not. But I've pieced a little things together here. One being the Raven Skull, which I hadn't seen anyone else say that. But two, this lady here, this lady that looks like Vex, the Vex lookalike. This could be Laudna. And again, that's not the original part of my idea here. I've seen other people say this, but I'm on board. I'm all aboard here. Because as we know, Laudna's from Whitestone. This is around the age she would have been when she died. Because, again, if you're still here, you were cool with spoilers. But yeah, Laudna is like a hollow one. So she was dead and she's undead now. So this was the age she was, around when she would have died. She said that her parents gave her to the Briarwoods because they thought it would get her a better life. And, clearly this young woman here was either given or volunteered for this. So the storylines could line up. And, she said that she just, after she quote unquote died, she woke up in a pile of corpses and, that's, the rest is history. So clearly this lady that they used for Vex's body double here could be Laudna. It's definitely a home run, stretch type of reach. So don't get it twisted. I realize that this is a long shot, but I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot. I feel like it could all come together. But here's the final little pin in the coffin that I haven't seen anyone else mention. Laudna. 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 If she is this character who is Vex's body double, what's Vex's name in real life? Laura. Laura. Just switched a couple letters around. Now you're telling me that wouldn't be the dopest reveal. So, that's all I got to say about that. Let's move on. So now we cut to the party who is making camp, gathering wood for a fire, all the things you need to do before a rest. And Vax and Keyleth have been having a couple moments, like with the flower again, which I mentioned this the last time it showed up, but could totally be an Easter egg for something that happens much later in the campaign. But we have Vex kind of clocking these interactions. And I don't know if jealousy is the right word, but given Vax and Vex, their relationship and their characterization, which we've spoke on last episode, they've always been together and they've always looked out for each other and been on the run and have had no one else. So her kind of seeing, Vax kind of have this spark with someone else, she pulls him aside and, kind of lets her concerns be known. And, of course he assuages her fears. And the moment I love here is he calls her Stubby, which that's one of his nicknames for her because she is just a few inches shorter than him. All right, here we get a couple fun little nods. So first of all, Scanlan's digging this scroll out of the bag of holding, but before he gets to it, he tosses out a jug and a cowbell. So you'll remember the cowbell, if you've watched my other breakdowns, is a reference to the episode where they become cows in order to be bait for a rock that's terrorizing some local farms. And I showed a clip of that moment, and actually in that clip at the very beginning is Vex being like, oh, there's a cowbell, and Scanlan's like, great, I need it. Here's my plan. So just love to see an additional shout out to Vox Machina. And then the jug, maybe nothing, but the fact that the cowbell is something and they threw out a jug that has an M on it, which I don't know what that stands for. I feel like it might be something. So if I'm going to just reach and try to think of what this could possibly be, there is an item called Magic Jar in D&D, but I don't think that's what this would be, and if it is, I don't know what that would even be referencing because I don't recall the party having a magic jar ever in the campaign. But they did have a jug, like I think it's called an alchemy jug or an alchemical jug. Now at this part of the campaign, the party did not find that item yet. But it still could be a reference, especially if they just decide to not include the item, explicitly ever. But they, at one point, get an item called an alchemical jug that you can kind of just wish for anything to be inside in terms of a liquid, and it'll be in there. So, like, you could want it to be full of water, or want it to be full of ale, or in Grog's case, mayonnaise. So it's a pretty cool item that they stumble across, and there's some good moments with it. So maybe this is a reference to that, or, maybe it's just a jug with an M on it. All right, so back to the scroll. As we find out, this is a scroll of polymorph, which lets Scanlan, change his form into that of something else. Now, in D&D, bards just get access to polymorph naturally, so he wouldn't have had to learn it from a scroll. But again, I think this is just one of those changes that kind of just makes more sense narratively of showing how characters, get stronger, get more powerful, similar to Keyleth having to practice casting the light spell. So I think this is a cool change. And the great little Easter egg here is one of the creatures he turns into, this half unicorn, half snake, is a reference to the Tavern Keeper build stream, which was when they got together and the Kickstarter backers got to help create an NPC for this show, the Tavern Keeper that appears in episode 1. So I'll just play the clip so you can see what I'm talking about, but fantastic little reference.
I want to check in on our Denver Airport Stallion to
How are the Broncos looking?
Yeah.
I gave up on the back legs.
You did? Oh, shit! I need it!
Now a horse, unicorn, serpentine like
Oh my god!
He can't draw a horse.
Oh,
I just refuse. I refuse.
it's a Yanti unicorn steed for Grog.
Oh, I want to see that on the show.
All right, let me preface this next scene by saying that I know full and well what I'm about to say was not like the intention of the creators. Like, this is not a reference I think they were putting in here for this reason. In fact, you know, she sees this owl and then goes on to say, like, this place reminds me of my home. So, like, that was the purpose of the owl. But, you know, I'm going for it anyway. A fun little excuse that this gives me is that Druid's wild shape, so the ability that Keyleth has to transform into animals, the caveat for how that works is that the Druid has to have seen that animal before. So, you know, if you're a Druid, you can't just say, I turn into, you know, a Demigorgon, or I turn into an ancient black dragon, or I turn into, you know, a platypus. You have to have encountered that before. So kind of her clocking the owl here reminded me of that. I mean, surely Keyleth has seen an owl before this moment. But, you know, maybe later in the show we'll get an example of this, of her seeing something then transforming into it shortly after or something. Anyway, this has been your unasked for PSA. Next, we get a quick check-in with Pike, and she has made her way to this temple of Sarenrae. And just a fun little thing here is that the temple actually is built in the symbol of Sarenrae, just like Pike's necklace. And also in this scene, we get introduced to this, you know, priestess of Sarenrae. Oh, I keep saying Sarenrae, sorry. The Everlight is what it's referred to as in the show, as Sarenrae is from D&D and copyright. But this priestess is played by Anjali Bhimani, who is another extended member of the Critical Role family. She actually appeared in Exandria Unlimited, a little short mini campaign that was only 8 episodes long that took place in the break between campaign 2 and campaign 3. So it was great to see her here. So this next sequence is one of the best of the whole episode. The party has, you know, made their camp for the night. They're gathered around the fire and they begin telling some stories. But before we jump into those, one thing I noticed, and this might be a stretch, but the way they're organized around the fire is the same way that they are organized around the table during campaign 1, with one exception being that Percy is kind of off to the side. So if you don't count Percy, which, you know, that kind of makes this less cool, but, you know, he's doing his own thing over there. So if you just assume Percy was not there, then this works. But Percy still is on the correct quote unquote side. He's just not in the correct position. So, you know, you tell me if this is intentional. All right, so let's jump into these campfire stories of the gang telling about their favorite kill. The great thing about these is that they all actually happened. Well, okay, I shouldn't say all, because for Scanlan, I don't recall that, and I wanted to ask you guys this. So if anyone recalls an encounter similar to what Scanlan describes, let me know in the comments, because I couldn't place that one. And even if it didn't happen, if anyone has any ideas for like what that monster or what that creature was, if it is akin to anything in D&D, let me know that as well. But anyway, so we start out with Vax and the Rakshasa. Now, this is a really cool enemy that I don't want to say too much about, but it's awesome. It's so cool to see this referenced, because, you know, where the Briarwood campaign and where the show starts is after the Rakshasa fight in the original campaign. So, you know, I just assumed we weren't going to see it. So it was great to see it here.
How do you want to do this?
I've got the dagger in my hand, right? I see him flying away. I'm just crouched down. I flip it over so the blade's in my hand. I don't go fast, I just take my time, pull back, throw it harder than I usually do. Through its neck. Out the front.
The dagger hits it in the back of the neck and the spine. It doesn't quite cut through the spinal column. You see it comes out the back of the front of the throat. The spell falters, falls to the ground, taking a serious impact fall, and is now like dragging itself towards the exit of the room as you start walking up to collect your blade. It brings up its hands and starts trying to cast the spell. Oh god. and cause this big old pool of blood on the ground.
Grab it by the ear and lift its head back. Talk about my sister again.
Up next is Keyleth. Oh, sorry, but this just cracks me up. This moment where she, pretty brutally murders this guy by drowning him in lava, also happened in the campaign, and it was equally as hilarious. So, I mean, not to repeat myself here, but this was awesome to see and unexpected, since these events took place before the Briarwood campaign.
Yeah,
He's in the process of standing up.
We just run and kick him
Yeah,
out.
I just run and push.
Okay. All right. So
I use pushing attack.
I'm sorry.
All right. So you go ahead and roll athletics.
This is the meanest thing I've ever done.
No, remember you killed that kid one time.
Oh, thanks for bringing that up.
Jeez.
That's some dark shit. That's some dark shit.
It's a long story.
Oh my god. Remember you killed that kid one time.
2.5 years in, and Keyleth has just learned our names.
I do too.
All the time.
See, look,
All right.
no one else.
So as
I have your names written down.
I'm Vex, okay?
What? No, that is not true.
So as the terrible blood spray occurs across the nearby pillar on Grog's side, the other Durgar is getting up with his crossbow, trying to get it ready. You rush forward. Go ahead and roll athletics.
Oh,
Come on.
How she does
no.
this, I notice everything, and
this
I
is
sit
for
down
that kid.
and turn to the next chapter in my book.
Okay.
We had it coming.
This is quite a good read. Could be worse. 14.
That's okay. He rolled a 1.
Oh, yes.
So as the Durgar is getting up, he goes, you just run up and poof, and he falls back into the magma. Goes, and starts giving a horrible, painful scream as he's essentially like flailing in the magma, melting.
Someone shoot him in the mouth.
I say shh, and I do the I wind down to like push him under the lava.
Okay, so as he's screaming, your wind wall shoves him further into the magma as he's screaming, cooling the magma around him as the rock cracks around him into black rock. His face still visible over the surface, going in this like horrible, almost Han and Carbonite type look at the top of the magma pool.
You just one-upped Grog, man.
That was awesome.
As fresh magma now begins to pool over the cool, covering his face, you step away.
Piss on the body.
I never knew you were an artist.
And speaking of artists, we next get this awesome Grog kill. So obviously, again, this happened in the campaign, but the circumstances for honestly all three of these are slightly different than what we see here, but this one is the most different. In the campaign, when Grog kills this bullet, which I think I'm pronouncing that right, it's the name of this creature, it's during a whole nother encounter entirely. There just happens to be one of these as well. And it's awesome, but don't take my word for it.
How do you want to do this, Grog?
Oh, you killed him?
Yes.
How do you want to do this, Grog?
I would like to chop down into the fleshy bit, and after I
The fleshy
slice-
bit's on the opposite side, by the way, so you're now at an unarmored
there,
side.
Billy.
However, it's still holding Scanlan in its mouth, shaking him around. So, how do you want to finish it?
Can I get to its mouth at all?
I could say for the flavor of this, yeah, you managed to just barely make it over
I would
here.
like to swing through and catch the corner of its mouth, open its mouth wide, and then I'd like to reach in and with my teeth pull its fucking tongue out of its head and start thrashing it side to side.
Alright, so first you rush up with your axe using all of the aggression, you take it and swing it, barely leaving you with a shave. You gash the side of its mouth and draw this giant wound open. As it does, you actually snap and cut through the tendons that clench the jaw, causing it to fall open and slack. Scanlan spills out of its mouth, hitting the ground with a dull thud. As its mouth is now open, it kind of rears back. You shake your head angrily as the froth is gathering at the corners of your mouth. You drop your axe from one hand, grab the jaw, reach in, bite down on its giant meaty tongue. Using your hand at the back of it, you pull and yank, and you feel all the muscle tearing and tensing before eventually it comes free, and it's now dangling about 25, 30 pounds of liquid, very, very wet, black tongue meat.
And after all the fun flashbacks with everyone going to sleep, we get this moment with Percy that I have been waiting for. Been looking, zooming in on past episodes to see if there were any hints of text on these barrels, but here we finally get it. And now you know why in campaign 1 he called this pistol the List. And these names etched on the barrels seem to be not his friends. So the next morning, we're heading to Whitestone. Percy is telling them about it before they get there, and we get this picture of, a pre-Briarwood Whitestone with the sun tree in its full glory. Obviously, this is not what it looks like now, but I'm going to take this opportunity to talk just a little bit about this. And maybe, again, this might be like an end-of-season thing where I go deeper into the lore on all of this. But if you watched episode 3, I mentioned how Percy's dad had that pendant on his chest with the sun symbol on it, referring to the Dawnfather, Pelor, which copyright probably won't call it Pelor, but I think they've used the phrase Dawnfather in this show. As history goes, this tree was planted by Pelor, by the Dawnfather, as, a symbol of his protection. And that's why Whitestone worships him, and that's why he's like their main deity. So just connecting some dots. So the party makes their way into Whitestone proper, and it's rough. One of the first things we see is this old beaten down shop called the Alcove, and this actually appeared in the campaign. The party actually went in there. It was operational. It still definitely looked like this, but the denizens of Whitestone still have to live. They still have to do what they can. So they actually went in the alcove, and Keyleth actually got an immovable rod in there. So calling back to way earlier in this breakdown when I mentioned the immovable rod. So it'll be interesting to see if maybe that still happens in the show. Like maybe we'll visit the alcove in the next drop of episodes. All right, and it's the moment you've been waiting for, the Matt NPC. The Wraith Matt aside, this one was a blink and you miss it type of one. This is the only frames he's in, I'm pretty sure. And that's him just back against the wall and walks away almost immediately after he shows up on screen. But then also here on the far right, this man in the window, this is an NPC designed after Arthur Loftus, who is an employee at Titmouse. So cool that they hid some of these people in the show as well. I'm going to have my eyes peeled for more of them. Okay, you guys, the final scene of the show, and I apologize, I'm about to wax poetic here, but I've been waiting for this. This is one of the most iconic moments to me personally. So ever since the possibility of this animated show existing, this was one of the scenes that I was waiting for. And obviously, even without any other context, it's a crazy scene, right? But what makes this even more special for me, and yeah, I've got you all hostage right now, so I'm gonna go on a little monologue here. One of the things that makes this just such an impactful moment for me is this episode is basically right around when I discovered Critical Role. I don't remember exactly if it was literally this moment, but it may have been literally this moment, or at least an episode in either direction is around where I discovered it on Twitch. So I just still vividly remember just being on Twitch and, I think going to sleep or getting ready to go to sleep and just, decided to browse the categories. And I noticed that Dungeons and Dragons had a ton of viewers. It was one of the top games on Twitch at the time. And I had never seen that before. And I had never played Dungeons and Dragons, had no really interaction with it in any shape, way, or form at all. So I was like, man, this is weird. Let me check this out. And I just started watching and being like, whoa, are they telling a story together? I didn't get it, but I loved it. I was instantly hooked, and I was just like, this is incredible. I was like, is he making this up as they go? And really just the rest is history. And, as you know, I have seen all of the episodes now. I caught up immediately, started watching live, since that week on. And again, this has nothing to do with the Easter eggs or anything, but figured it was my chance to share this, that, for all the obvious reasons, this is a crazy moment, but for me especially, having it also attached to me finding Critical Role for the first time, it holds a very special place in my heart. But yeah, just Now on to the moment itself. Just what a bonkers moment. It's one of the best of the campaign for me. And obviously that has some attachment to everything I just spoke on, but just wow, one of those oh shit moments. And I feel like the show did it great justice. I'd be interested to hear how those of you who had not seen campaign 1 felt about this moment, because I obviously knew it was coming, but a nice little treat they kind of baked into this episode for people like me that have seen campaign 1 was that earlier scene with the young girl who is getting the necklace. When that scene first started and those people walked in, obviously we all knew something was up. Like, these people are going to be eaten by Silas, or rather drank by Silas, or part of some ritual. But I did not know that they were the Sun Tree people until Delilah put that necklace on the little girl. And so even though I knew this moment was coming, they still kind of hit me with the surprise in that earlier scene. So just overall handled so well. And if it's not clear, I loved it. But yeah, also fun little fact, the little girl was played by Sam Riegel's daughter. So that's twice now that Sam's daughter has played children that, get brutally murdered.
It's hard to make out the details, and the weathering has kind of muddled the figures that are hanging there. Percy and Vax, you guys notice the figure on the far left.
The body.
The body on the far left has a like a red paint smattered across its face and its arms. It's wearing a dirtied green vest-like robe that dangles below it as it hangs there loosely. Immediately to the left of it, you see what looks to be the body of a child. The child is dressed up in a purple-ish billowing shirt, a very fine silk shirt and pantaloons, and is dangling there next to it. To the left of that, you see it appears to be a female, adorned in greens and browns. Looks like red paint has been driven through the hair, and dangles to the left of that figure. Next to that, you see what appears to be...
I'm walking the fuck away.
You see what appears to be another woman dressed in dark blacks and browns, leathers, some furs across the top, dark hair, dangling. To the left of that, you see another man dressed similarly, dark grays and blacks, long dark hair, dangling. To the left of that, you see a rather large man, older, rotund, probably in his 40s, clothing padded but mostly open chest, hair completely shaved bald. Looks like there are dark scars or placed across the face, hanging. To the left of that, you see this figure is actually not humanoid. It appears to have been
Oh my god.
a recently hunted bear that is dangling.
No.
Wait, what? Is that us?
It looks like us.
What?
It's us.
They killed people they thought were us. Or they killed...
Or it's a message.
Or it's a message to us.
Alrighty, friends, that's gonna do it for this one. I appreciate you sticking with me. I think this was the longest one yet. But I had a good time. Hopefully you did too. Yeah, just reminder, Twitch watch parties. If you want to watch with me, check down below. And yeah, episode 6 breakdown coming out in the next couple days probably. So again, appreciate all the love, appreciate the comments, the likes, the subscribes. It means a lot. So do me a favor and go have yourself a fantastic rest of your day.